We're definitely seeing, thank God, a return to more use of these bad boys.
Oh, I love post-it notes. I cannot do
So,
recruitment without them.
it's funny because there was a real strong move to digital, absolutely
Yeah.
digital tools, but at the same time, sometimes you can't work at the speed of thought using
And you
your.
can't be writing stuff down. That's what I if I write it down, I'm more likely to remember it than I am typing it.
Well, you are, and also you can write. Most people can write faster than they can type. Not everybody, but to that point then. And if you are facilitating a session, and this often gets missed out when you're eliciting requirements or when you're looking at problem solving, it's not just, oh, I've got Visio to document this, or oh, I've got Mural. To be honest, that's incidental. You should be able to do it on the back of a fag packet or on a napkin. It's the facilitation skills, the ability to hold the room, to understand who knows what, or to understand you don't know who knows what, to ask the questions, when to press pause, and when to get the truest version of what's happening. So it's good that we're seeing the return to the post-it notes. We're also seeing a return to the DMAIC approach. So observing a lot of recent adverts I've seen in the last 6 months, process mapping has come back on the bill. We're seeing problem solving. We're seeing reference to DMAIC, which is great because that was almost like a dirty word in some corners 3-4 years ago. So we're seeing a bit more of a respect to the roots of business analysis as a problem solving internal consultancy approach, which is fantastic. But also I think we're seeing an awareness that recently labelled business analysts, but actually they weren't business analysts, they were systems analysts. And they were in some cases people who should never have been sat at the side of an internal client or an external customer. If you can say, well, I'll give you a classic example. So there was a real obsession with, we've got to do the requirements, we've got to get the epics, we've got to get the user stories. But if you're doing that from the lens of a techie, and you're doing that as a transactional piece when you build your requirements log, as that's such a thing, I must do this, you're removing the fluidity out of the conversation. The bedside manner is not bedside manner. It's me looking at you. Do you do this? Okay, you now do that. If you've not got the emotional intelligence included within there to have a fluid conversation, you're never truly going to understand what the requirements are because you're asking somebody. And if Henry Ford had asked his customers what they wanted, they'd ask for a faster horse. It's the ability to understand the environment that's in there, but also to look at facilitating that conversation with what you understand as a BA. You should be doing your homework on the macroeconomic impact, what's happening in the force, things like reading The Economist and whatever else it may be. These are the kind of things that are kind of useful there. So we're seeing in the business analyst world a bit of a calibration. The power of the prefix, I think, is still needed. We still need more prefixes. We're seeing a bit more clarity now of people who want BAs, get a bit more clarity with the BA type that they want. And that's good, and that's great. We're seeing a bit more respect for some traditional tools, and we're seeing the combination of digital requirements and business requirements that sometimes being looked at in terms of what the enterprise wants, and we'll tease out the systems piece, and then we'll do detailed system requirements if there's a digital element to it. So it's really heartwarming. I think it's a phenomenal time if you are a business analyst, or even if you've never been entitled a business analyst, but you were the sort of person who was like, as a kid, you took tape recorders to bits and put it back together again, or whatever it would be. I think it's an exciting time because we've got a bit more knowing by the people who are buying the services now. Massively, and it's evolved as it should do as well. So it's gone from jobs having no title, or in some cases it was a bit of a role like TQM, total quality management, and stuff from the 70s. As it worked its way up through the 80s, there was elements of roles where people borrowed stuff from Motorola, so it was more bits of methodology borrowed by different roles. The origins, as I saw them, in a lot of cases come from management accounting, actually. And there's a module, if anybody who's reading this is an old accountant or did accounting studies like I did, there's a module in SEMA, which was management accounting, called Management Science Applications, which if you look at it, you can see that's a decent blueprint for business analysis. So in some cases, there was no roles. Then we're seeing roles emerge, and I'm thinking some of the titles I've had: process improvement coordinator, quality analyst, process analyst, and then sort of business intelligence partner or business analyst partner. And then we've also seen, as I said before, some roles that never have had BA or never considered themselves as BA, but you and I would recognise that, particularly in operational excellence, particularly sort of in the international stage. Also, we've seen the interesting thing of ISEB, which come from sort of the certification for business analysts. What we've also curiously seen is then that's moved into a more of a computer focused bit, which is, some people would say, has removed it from the roots of the problem you're trying to solve, because a business analysis approach should be, what's the problem it's trying to solve? It might be digital, it might not be. And if you don't get that part right, then it could be you design something beautifully, but it's what an old business analyst would call failure demand. If the problem was solved in the first place, you would need to do all of that. And the concepts of value add and non-value add are started, and some of the origins of lean manufacturing started to get brought back in again, which is it's
you love your origins, and
well, it's important because a lot of babies have been thrown out with the bathwater. And I'll never forget going to a section where somebody was screaming at me that a BA is an IT role, and it's absolutely not. It's definitely not an IT role in any shape or form. It's a complementer to the IT function, but it's a satellite role. It's an internal consultancy role for the organisation. But it was a spirited conversation anyway. So I've seen that. I've seen also a move from problem-solving thinkers to doers, just doers, and the thinkers were sort of dissuaded to join the BA party for a while. The thinkers are now returning, which is great, because one's one side of the brain, one's the other side of the brain, and it's, we need the thinkers back at the party, particularly the problems to be solved. And finally, we've seen the schism of BAs, of digital BAs and traditional DMAIC BAs. I think we're now starting to see the world's moved on. Curiously, business architecture joined the dots with TOGAF more than business analysts did, even though it's almost like they got the BA approach better than BA's world did themselves. I think to be comfortable in your own skin, embrace being different, embrace being a different thinker. What was in the early years almost like a guilty passion, having to book annual leave off to go to seminars, using flexi time to go for lean manufacturing business meetings and stuff like that, would have been to think, don't worry, this is all going to pay you back in years to come. Because actually you need to do this. Just because your employer doesn't get this, don't worry, just keep focused. So I think what I would have said to myself is actually have the courage of your convictions. When you see problems, don't get frustrated. And I used to write future focus papers 10 years ago on various different things and to this present day. And to keep doing those tools, because actually they will yield. Don't worry, it would be the message to myself is keep following your mojo, keep following what you're doing, because the world may not have caught up with where business analysis needs to get to. But you can actually have an hand in shaping that. Yeah, I think I mentioned before about the schism between digital and traditional BAs, and I think it's going to sort of fight itself out. I think the challenge can be alleviated if we embrace the power of the prefix, and as BAs recognise it's taking pride in yourself as a generalist. There's a brilliant book come out last year by a chap called Epstein called Range, Why Generalists Try and Form Specialists. But the key thing is, as a BA, you are a generalist. That's brilliant. You're not the subject matter expert. The subject matter experts are there, and you use you're an expert in transformation, and you move it forward in that way. But I think combining the ability to combine analogs and digital, so you can recognise that actually a digital strategy is a human strategy, which our good colleague Alex Comyn once said. And I think it's important it's understanding the economy, and I think business analysts will absorb more economics. I think they've got to do, because the pandemic in particular has just shown that economic awareness has enabled BAs to, say, for example, help them work out through their supply chain and have the ability to look as to where solutions may be. So very, very exciting times. I think, and